Welcome. You are at the CCC.
Where there are no outside issues with Bonnie Violet. I'm Bonnie Violet. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a trans, femme, genderqueer, spiritual drag artist, identity doula, digital chaplain, person living with HIV in recovery, whose drugs of choice were ecstasy, meth, and alcohol.
Absolutely. And I'm Lulu, a single black gay Virgo man in the DuBose Triangle of San Francisco, California. Important to know the difference. And into exploring my pan side, I'm a retailer by day and a drag queen by weekend for fundraisers only. Self-proclaimed funny and spiritual in recovery for alcohol and crystal meth for 13 years and in search of balance.
Very nice. My name is Anthony. I'm an addict alcoholic, a 6-year doctoral student in clinical psych. I have a cat that I love a lot, and I care about you.
Absolutely.
All right. And it's you, our intention, right?
Now in each week.
Oh, and each week. Oh, we do this.
Me,
How
each
long have we
week
been doing this?
Well, this is only our second time.
I know, exactly.
Each week, we will provide and create a brave space where we engage in conversations around topics of recovery.
And our intention is to hold and inspire better spaces for people in recovery.
But before we do that, like, subscribe, comment, and share with your friends.
Absolutely.
Click that notification.
Click, click, click.
We're back.
We are back.
Mhm.
It's so good to see both of you.
I know, it's good to see you.
Likewise. All three in the same room again.
All three in the
for
same room
the
again.
last time, though.
Yeah.
Well, until the next time, but
And last
not
time
next
is
week.
exactly till
Yeah.
the next time.
I really like your eyeliner.
Thank
really
you.
cool.
Absolutely. I'm
Absolutely.
wearing some too.
Are
Hi.
you?
Yeah,
Hi,
no.
Dominique. Dominique says, hi, kids.
Hi, Dominique.
Oh, shit. Hey, Dominique.
Hi.
Nice
how's
to
it
see
going?
you. I hope people know that when we're commenting on the stream that's coming in.
Right. People are joining us live.
Nice.
Yes.
And say hi to us. Say hi to us. We want to know that you're here.
Dominique's on YouTube.
Oh,
Nice.
so how's everyone doing?
I'm good. It's like, I had a busy week getting back in the swing of thing at work, That's all.
At that wind, though, I feel like I'm in Chicago.
Oh,
It's gross.
What wind?
It's, bro, where you been? It is
Inside my
so
house.
windy here.
In my
and it
apartment.
rained last night.
Did it?
I
Yeah.
don't know about the rain, but it was windy as fuck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like a flash rain. It's like all of a sudden it's like boom, a bucket of water coming out of the sky.
I do not
I'm like,
have hair for wind. Like my paranoia was like
my hair, I know. I like
it was crazy.
I'm good. No one asked me, but I'm good.
No, I was
Yeah.
gonna ask her. It's like, this was the time to
Yeah,
ask.
I've been feeling really sleepy because I've been having people over for the last couple of days.
Is that a good thing?
Well, yeah, but like I normally go to bed I start getting ready for bed around like 7:30 to be like out by 9. And so my friends have been over like really late or they've been staying the night.
Oh, MGM just said hi. For those who don't know, MGM is a former Miss Castro Country Club.
She's a local celebrity.
Yes, exactly.
Hey, MGM.
And she was also Grand Duchess.
She's a big deal.
And now she's just a pain in my side. I love
She
you.
wasn't like, oh, never mind.
What's that?
Never mind.
Okay, so
Nothing.
I have to be careful with the carbonation. If folks were chiming in last week, I was very burpy. People came for me.
People meaning Lewis.
Yeah, I was reminded that I should be drinking water. But should we delve into today's topic?
Why not?
Sure.
So what we're talking about today is different forms of coming out. Does that sound right, Bonnie Violet?
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah, and all the different ways that we come out.
Indeed. Yeah. And also just the concept of inviting in. Like,
Yes, exactly.
is coming out an outdated thing?
Right,
Like, is it something that the kids are doing?
right.
Or, I mean, that might have been our experiences, but is that, like, would it be interesting or helpful to think about it as inviting people in versus coming out?
Right.
Exactly.
Bonnie Violet sent us this great article. I think it was written by The Advocate. Was it The Advocate?
Yeah.
And the idea in this article was exactly like Bonnie Violet was saying, is should we move away from this idea of coming out? Because coming out implies that there's something we're hiding. And rather than hiding anything, maybe what we should be doing, as Bonnie Violet said, is inviting people into our lives. And so one of the things I think that is important to note is that there are a bunch of different ways of inviting people in, right?
Absolutely,
And it's a thing that we do constantly. So I know personally, like growing up, I came out when I was 14, but then like you meet new people and you're like, do I tell you that I'm gay? Does it matter?
Yeah, the whole point and what I gathered from the article, and even knowing, coming out is not a single event.
Right.
I know, I saw that.
Yeah.
Coming
So
up,
MGM just said coming out versus coming clean.
Yeah. Well, I think that, well, right. But I mean, I think too, it's like coming out is the idea that you have to come clean. Like you have to like disclose some sort of secret or something like that.
absolutely.
And that's not like our sexuality and sexual orientation shouldn't need to be something that we have to hide.
Yeah,
But it has been
because
something.
why? If it's that important, like maybe straight should have to come out as heterosexual.
Well, they don't even have to come out.
They don't,
Like
exactly.
people just automatically assume they are.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not a question.
Yeah, and I think as it relates to recovery, maybe it wasn't until maybe the last 30 or 40 years where not coming out, but disclosing that you were an addict or an alcoholic or someone that dealt with substances became okay, right?
Yeah.
Because it only became something okay to talk about when medical institutions started to acknowledge that it was an illness, right? Because before that, it was a moral issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think the more that we talk about things, the less we need to, like the less like you don't have to come out about any. If everybody's talking about it, then there's less
exactly.
stigma
Right.
on it,
Right.
and all that sort of stuff like that. Because you can see that there's more than one narrative to what it means to be gay, what it means to be an addict, what it means to be trans. That there isn't just one way, and some extreme perception that people were told or saw on TV or whatever that doesn't quite fit all forms of a community.
Right. There's something about that kind of reminds me of not regretting the past nor shutting the door on it. Not to imply that like we should regret any parts of our personality, but this idea that there aren't taboo subjects, which is one of the things I took away from that article, is that like, why are there things that we're not allowed or are forbidden to talk about? One of the things that's coming to mind is, so I found out I was HIV positive like 2010. And a couple years after that, I was hanging out with one of my friends and I hadn't disclosed my status, even like that idea of disclosing.
Right.
But one of the interesting things he said to me was, and by friend, I mean someone that I was dating / hooking up with. And they just asked me straight up, like, are you on PrEP or are you on antivirals? And it was just like a very normal conversation. It was the first time I had ever been engaged in that way, where someone was just talking about something without there having to be like some energy around it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was talking to my sponsor on the way over here, and I believe, like, okay, so I was shaving off the number of years I have in my life, but as long as I've been alive and my struggles and my adventures, whatever you want to call it, I've worked really hard to maintain it. And I don't just give to people freely. Like I think I was talking about last week, how one of my peeves is like when somebody gives you too much too soon. Not everyone knows how to or can appreciate or value what makes you you. And so what I got from the article is you're in a vulnerable place. And, this idea that coming out as opposed to kind of inviting in, you're trusting that the individuals that you are communicating with, they're showing, are going to love you enough to kind of accept you as who you are. So it's a tough one.
Well, and coming out makes it about them instead of about us. It's like, because I've been able to come out, twice now. Like I came out as a gay man, when I was 20, so nearly 20 years ago. And so coming out at that time, it was, and I came out about my HIV diagnosis all at the same time. And it was a huge coming out thing, but I also felt like it was, like it was like a coming out. But I remember when I started transitioning that I didn't really I just wanted to live my life and just be trans. And, the people around me can call me by a different name and use the gender pronouns that I like, but I didn't want to make a big production of it. But it came down to like with my family though, I still had to make a production of it because it was their issue, not mine. You know what I mean? So again, it was, and I do want to say I did go at them, like inviting them into my life. Like it definitely was a decision that I want them in my life, and so in order to have them in that part of my life, I had to talk to them about it. So I didn't feel like it was a coming out, but it was definitely a very different experience, say, back in July than what it was 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me a lot of like the type of relationships that some of us have in recovery. One of the things that I've noticed is like, not everyone needs to know your story, right? Like I definitely appreciate the idea of authenticity.
Not everyone wants to know your
Yeah,
story.
like not everyone wants to know your story. Maybe not your story, Louis.
Okay, how about that? No.
Shots fired.
I know.
So yeah, I'm thinking about like in the rooms, not everyone needs to know your story. Not everyone's like a safe person to have those kind of conversations with, right? And so, you know, if I don't feel like you're a safe person to have a conversation with, I don't owe you shit. Like, right. So I'm not inviting you in, right? The other thing it makes me think of is when I had first found out about my HIV status, there was this great article, and it was talking about why do we disclose, and the kind of the rule. I think it was Dan Savage, that guy. Problematic, but he made a really good point in this one conversation. He said, when we disclose our status or disclose something about ourselves to someone else, it's to empower ourselves. And if you're not empowering yourself, then there's like no reason to have that conversation, right?
Yeah.
How do you find the balance? Because like I was thinking about when you were talking about like, okay, so this inviting in, the way that I was calling it coming out at the time, I very carefully chose the folks that I was going to do this with. There were some people like, as long as, in my mind, as long as these individuals knew and accepted me, then I was fine. And everybody else, they could figure it out. And I also made it a point to do it in person. I wanted to be there and sit with you and talk to you. And obviously I was stumbling through, and it was really about them because I initially came out as bisexual. You know how much I came as bisexual. Yeah, exactly. Because I was trying to soften the blow. And then obviously that's why I've had to come out numerous times to certain individuals.
I had to come out gay first before I could come out as pansexual or trans.
It's interesting we're having this conversation. Because like one of the things, because I can remember being young and having like a genuine interest in girls and in women, and then at some point like realizing that I also liked guys because I was 14, like I'm not, it's, so as like an adult and as someone in recovery, like something I've thought about is like, am I truly like 100% gay, that's not anything I wish to fucking act on at this point in my life. It's already complicated. But I think there are like, I'm thinking a lot about the Kinsey scale, right? Like the idea that only 10% of us are like truly gay and truly straight. And then there's this 80%.
Well, and it can change throughout our life.
Oh yeah.
I
think I think what's happening now is since there's more language, more conversation, and more normalizing, this idea that we don't have to kind of be locked in. Like, because I'm like you, I genuinely had attraction to women. And the dirty magazines under the bed were of women, and I felt what I was feeling, and I said what I said. And so obviously it is complicated. I don't need to kind of I don't want to revisit certain aspects, but who knows?
So Dominique is writing in on the feed, and she asks, can you talk more about the difference and similarities and about coming out around gender issues instead of sexual orientation issues? Very nice question, Dominique. I really appreciate that. I just want to add one thing before we maybe take that on is one of the things, just kind of taking it back to recovery for a second, one of the things I really appreciate about being sober and being in like recovery communities is that these conversations happen more often. And I think the reason why they happen more often is because you have people who are doing the spiritual and personal work that allows for those like intimate parts of themselves to come to the surface. It's kind of like what you've said to me a million times in the past, maybe not a million times, but when you say like, you bring what you do to your friends, and if they can take it, they take it. And if they can't, where they,
how you sort through bullshit.
Right. So have we thought about this question?
Yeah. So like, I would say the differences between like coming out as like my sexual orientation versus trans, well, actually, it's like, and if I'm just thinking about even my parents, I have not even broached the topic of my sexual orientation being different. but I feel like, it's like, I think it's really hard for me to say how much of a difference it is because there was 20 years between. Like I'm sober now. I'm like, there's just been so much growth happening. But if I sang it from my father's perspective or somebody else's perspective with me through that process, who's maybe not going through the journey in the same way. You know, my dad, when I told him I was gay, he had a really hard time with it.
Yeah.
I stayed at home for a week. I also told him I was HIV positive at the same time.
Oh.
So I stayed at home for a week. And yeah, I was like, I'm gay and I have AIDS.
And I'm running away to San Francisco.
So I stayed home for a week because I thought that's what I needed to do. And my dad and I both avoided each other in the house. We didn't say anything. We did not say anything. We just were afraid, I think, to interact poorly. And so when I left, my dad still hadn't spoke to me, but he gave me a hug.
Yeah.
Now I went home for Christmas recently and I spent 5 days back at home, and it's been like 6 months since I told my dad I was trans, and he ignored me the whole time. He was in the same room with me, but gave me silent treatment, wouldn't look at me. And then when I left, he did nothing. He didn't give me a hug. He didn't nothing. So it's different for him. He told me that his gay son could come home, but I wasn't welcome.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And so,
I do, yeah.
So I'm not sure. I know. And that's the whole thing. It's we're just living our damn lives. And because of how we live our lives and other people have some perception or it experiences them, then it has to become sort of an issue for us. And that's the thing that I think is kind of frustrating, that being gay or being trans or having HIV or being in recovery is something that even needs to be you shouldn't have to come out about it, but you also shouldn't have to not talk about it either.
Yeah.
For me, I really try to be so integrated and to bring all of who I am wherever the fuck I am. I don't want to be somewhere else, be somebody somewhere else and that doesn't mean I have to share my shit to everyone.
Right.
But I choose not, I can make a choice behind it. It's not that I'm doing it because I'm scared or because I have fear. It's because I just don't think it's important or it doesn't matter,
Yeah. So Dominique was just saying, I agree that a certain amount of growth has to take place before coming out about being trans. Very beautiful, Dominique.
I think that to speak on that as well, I feel as though we can't take for granted where folks are with this idea of coming out. I mean, I think that it takes a certain amount of growth to be able to say that I'm inviting you in as opposed to coming out. And also the relationships that we have with the people that we supposedly come out to, our parents. What I realized, I don't know why I did this thing. When my mom passed away, all of a sudden it's I was really concerned about relationships with folks and parents and whatever. And the truth of it is, or the reality is, we are affected by parents even when they aren't in our lives.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Even when they aren't in our lives. And so I think that it shouldn't be lost on us that as much as we like this idea of the convenience of this idea of saying, oh, we're letting you in, inviting you in. That's not the case for some folks. Right. Some folks don't feel as though they feel you place these people on these pedestals. And so what they say affects you more than So yeah, I feel there's needs to be a certain amount of growth. And I don't know how that happens for some people, but I just think.
So that was going to be my next question is, so we'll go back to you, Bonnie Violet. What made that possible for you? What made it possible for you to very early on come out and then come out again or inviting in?
Yeah, I mean, the first time I was kind of forced because of my HIV diagnosis, and I was just scared shitless, and I was 20, and the only person I wanted my mom. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Now, I think with my transness too, it took me a while. I had to be able to hold it for myself, so that, because I think people have even more people have a harder time of understanding your transness. And so it was something I had to feel and it's something that there's still a lot that I don't know. Mm-hmm. There's still a lot I'm coming to understand about my own identity. And so sometimes that's hard to step forward and say who this is, who I am, especially if I say I'm trans. What the heck does that mean? And it feels like I have to be fully formed before I can invite people into that space. And so I think for me, I just had to get to a space that even if my dad gave me a funny look, or my mom was or whatever, that I had to be okay with losing all that. And so for me, I had to get myself in a in a place to be okay without to deal with the rejection potentially.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like this idea that Dominique is bringing up here, is that it's not about coming out, it's about being our authentic selves. And so I feel like that's part of the question, is like, how do we cultivate authenticity? You know, like, because I think that's what it sounds like. It sounds like that's where this happens, right? Like, we discover these things about ourselves, and because we love other people, we might want to share that with
Right.
them.
Well, and I think in recovery, it becomes more and more paramount. Like, it becomes crucial. Like, it is important for me, to not have secrets.
It makes a
know?
difference when we're doing work on ourselves.
Exactly.
When anyone's doing work on
And
themselves.
those things
yeah.
shouldn't need to be secrets, but
Yeah.
anything, and secrets keep us sick. I really believe
Yeah,
that. And
absolutely.
so in order for
Same.
me to be well, I have to put some light on that stuff. And it's unfortunate that this stuff is even in the dark to begin with,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
because it shouldn't be.
You know what's funny about that is, like, sometimes I put shit in the dark that doesn't even need to be there.
Oh yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, you have it's like you have the conversation, or you have the back and forth with that person without the other person,
It's
or
part of-
we assume we're going to know how people are going to react to us, and unfortunately, it's the images and the messages that we're constantly getting, that people are turned away, they're not loved, and I think Brene Brown talks about it. Is like we're trying to belong, and the last thing I want to do is to put myself in a place to where you turn me away.
Well, oftentimes to fully live into one of those things means we have to die to something else. And so it's really hard to be able to come to see yourself as somebody different than what you saw, and to be like able to hold that 100%. Like, sometimes you just have to like take it on and then put it aside, or do it in it. I mean, I think it's a very natural form for us to find groups like we do in recovery. Even we hang out with people in recovery to get sober because they're like us and they're doing life like us. And then we get to do the rest of our lives with that along with us. Do you know what I mean? So
I do. Yeah.
So I think,
That's my favorite part of the St. Francis prayer at the very end. It is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. That's one of the other thing it makes me think of is, like, I live for people who share at meetings from that, like, jugular, vulnerable, like, ugly place.
Yeah.
You know, I love that shit so much. I love when someone comes in and they're like, I'm broken, and this is what my broken pieces look like, and this is how I'm feeling. And it's just, those are the shares that I relate to the most, you know? And I think it's because this idea of being vulnerable, and I think, like, that's someone who's like bearing their soul and is giving permission to other people.
And in a way that's not like, in a way that's kind of healthy,
right.
but not kind of using it as a manipulation.
Right.
Oh yeah,
Because
I know
that's the
those
thing.
people
Like,
too.
but yeah, because it's like because like for the work I do with my sponsees or anyone, it's like I figure that the best thing I can do is not to give you unnecessary advice unless you ask for it,
Right.
but to really kind of share an experience. And they come up when they're supposed to come up. Share an experience that lets you know that I can relate to what you're saying, but it's my unique experience.
Yeah. Well, and I think just to kind of like, when I talk about being an identity doula or a chaplain, it's all around death and dying to self. So it's like, there's plenty of times in my life when I died, when I realized that I was gay, when I realized I was a person living with HIV, and many of that, I didn't know that I could reach for God. Like, in some ways, I actually thought that I wasn't allowed or eligible for God anymore. And so that's why there's a lot of, and whatever sort of spirituality, right? And so that's why I really like being a queer chaplain and identity doula, is to help people invite some sort of light into that death, so that as they're birthing into a new identity, the doula aspect, that, you know what I mean? And like being present with people during that, because it's a crushing experience, right? I mean, it's a death, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just so much better when we can, invite God or spirituality or something like that into that experience, because it's going to be difficult anyway.
Yeah. When I started graduate school, my very first year, one of my all-time favorite professors, her name is Dr. Anita Barros, and we have this in your first couple years, you have this one class. It's called Case Conference, and that's where people come and we discuss our cases and our formulations. And I remember she once said to us, so much of graduate school to be a clinician is like you're unlearning all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You're like learning when not to talk. You're learning when not to have an opinion. You're learning when to shut your brain off.
Mm-hmm.
And that reminds me a lot of like my first few years in recovery, where I was unlearning so many things that I thought I knew about myself. Like the fourth and fifth step for me were crucial in that way, because I had all these stories that I was telling myself that I didn't realize I was telling myself. And then I had someone in front of me who was like more seasoned in recovery, much more spiritual than I was, telling me, actually, have you looked at it this way before? Or like they would shed light on something that I just like I had no way of looking at. And I think that's also what happens when I hear someone speaking vulnerably or openly about themselves, is that like there's sometimes the biggest changes happen to me when it's not necessarily what someone's saying, it's how they're saying it, right? So like, for example, I really appreciate when someone is like terrified about discussing something, but they're doing it anyway. Like, it doesn't matter what the content is, but it's so beautiful to see someone be courageous and like walk themselves through something like that.
Yeah. So it's in those, and I agree with you. I always say I love it when I'm in a meeting and someone's sharing and they share the good stuff and they get down and dirty and whatever. Because what it does is it without knowing, sometimes it inspires me to kind of go a little deeper for myself.
Yeah. One of the things that kind of came up in this article was it kind of referred to, and I'll quote, "There's also a facet of racial and socioeconomic privilege lurking behind the idea of coming out." Would either of you want to speak to that?
Yeah. Before we do that, can you tell us the name of the person who wrote the article? I feel like
and the link is in the description, so you should be able to find it there. But the article is by David Johns.
David Johns.
We need to move beyond coming out and begin inviting it.
Yeah. So could you also go back to the question?
The modern idea of coming out has become reductive. So there are also a facet of racial and socioeconomic privilege lurking behind the idea of coming out.
Yes.
Often the people who are centered in coming out stories are white, cisgendered gay men who come out to their families and then have the ability to move away to a neighborhood in a city and begin their new life.
Yeah. To use a kind of like played out word in the academy, but to think about intersectionalities, I hate saying shit like that.
What is intersectionality?
So I'm cringing because I'm cringing because like in undergrad, like everyone used buzzwords like that, and in my opinion, like these words that like originate in universities are so alienating, and I think they illustrate the very point that we're trying to make here. It's like I can't go to my grandmother who's like from Puerto Rico, is in her 80s, and be like, you need to respect my intersectionalities.
Right.
The fuck,
exactly.
But what are intersectionalities? So intersectionalities are basically if we were a Venn diagram, like walking Venn diagram, it's where all of our different identities start to overlap. Yeah. So for example, my intersectionalities might be like, I'm gay, I'm brown, I'm a big brother, blah, 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 so those are, and so the idea here is that there's a uniqueness that happens when you cross those things. And so a person's life might be a little different. So in this case, like, how does it relate to like coming out or inviting people in? So the first thought that comes to mind is like access to resources and safety, right? So for example, like one of the beautiful things that I found in that article is like, you have some people living in like the rural South, they don't have the resources to like just get up and bounce and move to the neighborhood, right? Like first off, even if they could get up and bounce, like where the hell are they going to live in San Francisco? Yeah.
You come out and then you've got to go to your room.
So there is power and privilege and all of that. And I'll hand this over to someone else. But for me, it was like an issue of safety, right? Like I was born and raised in the hood. Like it wasn't necessarily safe for me to be like this little gay brown boy to be like, me, I'm gay, like it just, there wasn't safety there. But, I was inspired to come out when I was 14 because like there was just, my spirit was just not having it. I was like, this needs to get off my chest. So I think that's part of it. Yeah.
I was already a grown ass adult. I just started thinking about it. Like I maybe had inklings in the past, like I could look back now and see where I had ideas, but it wasn't until 28, 29. I didn't come out till I was 28. Like, and so I was already an adult. And I feel like my situation was a little different because I was already kind of a free spirit and whatever. And, because one of my things was I am going to, and this was a very conscientious decision. I thought about the process it took for me to come out. And so I told myself I'm going to be patient with the people that I love because it took me some time to get my head around it. And so I'm going to give them that same kind of courtesy.
Right.
And I also feel like, I had the privilege of kind of not being not being under my parents to the point where I come out and then I'm stuck.
Right.
Like I can tell you and you can tell me what you think, but whatever, you're not paying my bills. So it's like, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of lotion do you have on? It smells really good.
It's like this Vaseline intensive care, but it's men's care. Yeah.
Right.
Vaseline intensive
No,
care.
it's like it comes in this black bottle. I like it. It's a men's care. It's just really kind of nice. It's yeah.
Right.
Hey, my life is lotion, okay? Because if you've ever seen these ashy hands, okay, it's like, and as you get older, it's important to moisturize.
Hey, hormones did that to me
Yes.
too.
They dried you out?
Yeah, like I've never needed to be a person who used lotion, and I have to use it like
That was
constantly.
another thing about New York. It's like it's just dry. It's like I was
Yeah.
constantly having to moisturize.
Yeah. I have very soft skin naturally.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I think it's because I think
I
it's-
have very soft skin naturally.
because, well, knock on wood, thank you God. Because I think it's because I grew up being so fucking oily. I was always so oily that I think like my body caught up to me, and so now I'm
Yeah.
just like low grade oily.
Yeah.
Low grade oily.
I love this conversation.
Yeah.
This went
Right.
straight to hell.
Right there. So back to intersectionality.
Yeah, back to
And recovery.
intersectionality.
And I know you don't like that, but I think the thing
No.
about intersectionality that's good, it just recognizes that there's more going on than just the fact that I'm gay or just the fact that I'm like, there are, if you will, competing factors or competing parts of myself
Yeah.
that may make it difficult or create a new set of challenges that I can't just look at just, okay, I'm gay and like attach every gay challenge to every person who's gay, because there's so much more to them than just the fact that their sexual orientation or
Right.
their race or
Right.
anything else.
So now you're reminding me of one of my other favorite professors from undergrad. Her name's Dr. Lydia Perda. I love her so much. I remember we were talking about internalized homophobia or homophobia in general. And my like arrogant, naive undergrad ass was like, I had that whole argument about talking to my grandmother, who's, my whole thing. She's an immigrant. She doesn't speak English.
Right.
And Dr. Perda said to me, you don't start the conversation from there, right? Like you find proxies, you find things that are relatable to people. And I think, so I feel compelled to say that because I think what I was saying earlier implies that there are things that are completely inaccessible. And I think one of the things that comes with privilege is sometimes we serve as translators, and sometimes that translation happens. Like we don't always have to translate shit for people, but when we care about people, we're willing to do a little bit of that work. Yeah.
I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
It's like when we care about them, because I find a lot of times with these younger generations who are now having these conversations and using this language, are all, I don't have to explain to you. You open up Google and learn it yourself.
Right.
But the reality of it is, like, if I really want you to join me on this journey and I care about you, then there's a part of me that needs to be patient with you, like somebody was patient with me.
Certain
Yeah.
amount of emotional labor.
When-
That's the other buzzword.
Emotional labor. Yeah. When y'all date, I don't mean to stampede over you. Were you done?
You're fine.
Okay. When y'all date, do you talk
Assume
about?
that
Wait.
I date.
Yeah.
What is
Assume
that?
that I date.
What is that?
Well, follow me on this journey.
Okay.
Like, do you tell people that you're sober right away? Okay, chew on that.
No, that's
chew
a
on
good
that.
question because I don't. It's like I don't hide it.
You're like, I don't date, therefore.
I don't date, so I haven't like when I was hooking up on Scruff or whatever, I wouldn't say I was sober, but I would scream for I don't know, it's like those aren't limitations for me, so I wouldn't want them to be limitations for somebody else.
What you mean? Like you'll hook up with someone who's high on meth?
I didn't say I would hook up with somebody.
Well,
who
I was just asking.
I'm just saying that
For the
I might
people.
hook up.
I want the people to
I
know.
might
I want
hook
the people
up
to-
with. I
just
might
in case you
date,
wanna hook
I
up with
might fall in
Bonnie.
love with somebody who uses substances.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But it does create like another level because some people also have like a very clear line that I would never date anyone who used drugs or even has a history with drugs. So so it's kind of one of those like catch-22s. You know,
Yeah.
I usually like to put everything out there from the get.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like I honestly, I've only been on the one date this year, and the truth of it is, God, I always say that word. And the truth of it is, well, it's the truth.
Yeah, lie to us. Just
The
lie to
simple
us.
truth. No. Okay, so we had the conversation because he said, well, yeah, we can go for a drink. I don't drink. I just said I don't drink. I don't.
Right.
And it's not that I'm concerned about people knowing, because all the people that matter to me in my life know that I needed this
Right.
shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that I don't need to go through. I don't need to.
Yeah, I don't
disclose.
tell. Sometimes people will ask me, or I'll say I don't drink, and they'll say, "Why don't you drink?" It's like I just notice I do life better without it.
Well, and I'm so bad. It's like I said I don't drink. I don't need.
You don't.
What are you making small talk? Why do I need to explain to you why I
Let's
don't
talk
drink?
about the weather.
I know exactly. It's like next conversation. That's probably why I don't date a lot, because I'm
Right.
all, this conversation is over.
It's so hard, and I think it also just is so relative.
What,
Like, it just-
dating? Or,
yeah, and like
or-
around disclosure and stuff. Kind of like you said, it's like to just barf it all out is not appropriate, right?
Yeah, I think it's got to be like I feel like it's already kind of a challenge, whatever, to figure out when you give parts of yourself to, so you don't overdo it, especially like in the whole dating like arena, because all that weirdness about like, oh yeah, it's too much too soon. Now people ask for the honesty, and then you give them honesty and they freak out.
Right.
I feel like, and going back to for me, if it's in my heart, if I'm feeling a connection or whatever, then I'm going to invite you in to what I've got going here. I like that. I'm going to invite you in.
Invite you in.
Yeah. How do you know when you're connected? I guess. Like, how do you know when you want to invite someone in?
Well, that's like you talk to God about it. I mean, like you pray. You like, I don't know.
I think that it's different for each individual, because there are folks that you meet and you meet.
I'm asking you.
Well, okay, there are folks that I meet and instantly we have a connection.
If you have an intuition,
you have a connection, and obviously it's not going to happen on the first night, because that's where we get the sex out of the way.
Well, you just
But
no,
but it's
there's
not
that
gonna-
intuition though.
Yeah,
I think.
exactly. It's intuition, and sometimes it doesn't work. It falls flat. But I think that it's a matter of, okay, I'm putting myself out there. It's either going to be good or it's not going to be good.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I mean by like kind of like pray about it or talk to God. I'm like, just like have your shit together to where you're like aware enough to where you have your intuition, you trust your intuition, and you can respond to it, so that when you're going into every situation, you can bring your best self, knowing that you're going to respond in the best way possible in whatever relationship that you're in.
Yeah, that's difficult for me because
it's difficult.
Yeah. That's difficult for me because like I feel like I can't always trust the way I feel, and so like obviously I'm making a distinction between like intuition and feelings, but it's really hard for me
to discern them.
Yeah, to discern, right? Because like when I was out in the world drinking and using, like that, I thought I was connected.
But there's like an intuition knowing that's right there.
But that's
in your little heart. It's in your little
my heart is in my heart
there.
Yeah, no, I know it is. I know like you have to get quiet and like, it shows up. Yeah. But what?
I say you give yourself a break, because I feel like you might be approaching this conversation from where you've been recently, as opposed to like maybe once you have a little bit of time away from your last experience, and you get your cojones back. No.
Well, I want to say I agree, and I don't mean to be flippant. I think what I'm saying is like I am at a place now where I have a stronger sense of what that intuition is. Mm-hmm. I think I have a really hard time trusting it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like sometimes, because sometimes I'll meet someone and I'm like, man, this is fantastic. Like blah blah. I feel like I have a connection, and then like I wait a little bit and I'm like, oh, you're actually fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's because a different part of you is taking over. It's not really your intuition; it's your horniness or your ego.
This is when we practice faith. This is where faith comes in,
or whatever is kind of at the forefront.
I think that the solution to that has been for me like to slow down. So like
right, pause.
if I'm to pause. If I'm uncertain, it's like, actually, why don't you take a minute and like take that to God or take that to a sponsor? I don't mean to equate those two, but you know what I mean?
Right,
Take
right.
it somewhere else before you act on it.
Yeah, and God, for folks who are listening, isn't necessarily like, the like God. It's just some
Yeah,
sort
no,
of
it's
higher power, something
whatever.
outside of
No, it's like
ourselves.
we use
is that?
God because it's so
What's
easy, but it's like
Does anyone know what that means? Sorry, I'm listening to
No,
you, but
no.
someone on YouTube said "boom today." Boom today.
I just don't know what you're
I
saying.
don't know.
elaborate.
Simon,
I'm excited.
Some. What does it say? Samora. So what? It's too far away. Okay, so I think we have 5 minutes left.
Yeah, so
Do we want to? Oh, hi, beautiful people.
Jimmy, we love you.
Jimmy.
Hi, Jimmy.
Hi.
Jimmy's like right out.
I'm always going to answer to a beautiful person.
Yeah. Okay, with the 5 minutes we have left, what do we want to tell the people?
So you can always reach me at my Instagram, LouisLou86.
I don't want to go already.
I know exactly.
Like, we have
It's
5 minutes. Can't we like squeeze in a little bit more talk time? I don't know.
Yeah,
what to
we
say,
can.
but-
Well, we have to do this part first. It's
Okay.
compulsory.
Yeah, exactly.
Alright.
So yeah, at LouisLou86, and I'm slowly but surely like changing my content. So it's like
Yes.
it's not going to be all salacious. No,
It's delicious.
no, it's
That's
not.
Oh.
fun.
Good Lord, no.
Yo.
I don't have social media. Stop doing that to me.
Say, yeah.
But listen. I will.
You
That's
can-
really funny.
You can throw a rock. You can throw a rock through his window.
No, but I'm considering. I don't want to start a Facebook because Facebook is whatever it is, Meta. But I'll probably start some social media. I'll take recommendations from people out there, like maybe Instagram or something like that, specifically for the podcast. I do want to be accessible.
Lovely.
Social media, like I've said before, really fucks with my mental health.
Right.
Yeah. Did you want to tell people
Sure.
how to contact me? I got real serious and about me.
Right.
And go ahead.
You can reach me at a queer chaplain on all of the things. Check that out. And yeah.
Yeah.
So I was gonna
Right on.
say.
Yeah.
And-
Sorry, I didn't mean to read your email.
No, it's fine. Notice I closed them. Get out my business. It was open.
I was
It's
like, your business was looking at me.
It
He
was-
was not inviting you in.
No, it was open. It's like the cast. We want to remind you that the Castro Country Club is a clean and sober gathering place for people and a home for the queer recovery community, where we endeavor to be a space where all can seek wisdom, serenity, and courage and joy.
Oh, I say something.
Yeah.
Oh gosh,
Not
I totally
official.
forgot about it. Hold on. Not official representatives of any program, just sharing from our own experiences. So my opinion is only my opinion is basically what that means.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Don't listen to us.
Yeah.
And also, so you can send us a voice message or ask us a question on our Speak Pipes. There's a link in the description. You click on it and you just leave us like an old-fashioned voicemail.
Oh yeah,
It's
that's
kind
hot.
of cool. It's
That's
very hip.
Yeah. So we have 2 minutes left. Jimmy, did you know, Jimmy? So Jimmy said,
Oh, Domin. Oh,
so
don't call somebody a troll.
that's mean.
No, I think that was the other person was trolling.
Oh, but it
Yeah.
doesn't. Oh, anyway, so happy you showed up. Maybe you heard something that you needed to hear, even if you were trolling us.
I know exactly.
You get the message where you get the
Oh,
message.
we've arrived. We have trolls.
Yeah. Oh, so just
Look out.
Jimmy, did you know there's a positive research shows there's a positive correlation between low self-esteem or the impact of self-esteem and social media use? Positive correlation.
Hmm.
So food for thought.
Yeah. Well, we should have a discussion on what I'm doing. I'm trying
What
to
are-
kind of
What?
streamline and make my social media serve me as opposed to the other way around.
Did we land on a topic for next week?
Yeah.
What was it? What is it?
I don't know. I'd have to look at the spreadsheet.
Oh,
We have 1 minute left, and now
Okay.
people think we're unorganized. What is our?
No, we are not. We
We're
just
it's the
what happens. We
BTS.
just really enjoy being with each other and
Yeah,
having these
we
conversations.
do.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to Aloha Roundup tomorrow. I'm going to Hawaii tomorrow.
Oh,
Nice.
For the Aloha Roundup.
Are you gonna be
which
back
is
by
on
next
Friday.
week?
I'll probably just chime in. We should probably have this conversation off air.
I'll be the only one sitting here. I'm all, hi, how's it going? Welcome to the Lewis conspiracy theory.
right.
Our
Well,
producer's smiling. I don't know if that means.
keep an eye out. Join us next week. We'll have
Oh.
a topic. We'll post that in the next couple of days or so.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we
Yeah.
will.
Why are we doing this?
I don't, because it's soft. It's soft on my
Yeah,
nose.
yeah, and make sure you tune in every Tuesday at 4 p.m. when we go live on our Castro Country Club Facebook and YouTube channels.
Yeah, and find us on all the spodcasty things, like the spodcasty
The
things,
pod.
the pods, any of the pods. Tell your friends about us.
All right.
People love us, and we love you.
Thank
We
you.
should just say goodbye.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye bye.
Bye.
See ya.